Africa Addio. Africa Addio, known in the US as Africa Blood and Guts, is one of the most controversial documentaries ever made. Directed by Italian filmmakers Gualtiero Jacopetti and Franco Prosperi, the film shows the violent period after European countries ended their colonial rule in Africa. Over 3 years, the directors filmed scenes of revolutions, civil wars, animal poaching, and massacres, some of which remain the only known footage of those events, such as the killings during the Zanzibar Revolution and fighting in the Congo. It includes extremely graphic scenes: Arab civilians being executed en masse, bodies left floating in rivers, baby elephants killed with grenades by poachers, and prisoners being shot on camera. In Rwanda, the film reports that 18,000 Watusi were killed in just 2 months. In the Congo, rebels murdered, burned, and even ate their victims. The filmmakers often filmed these moments from helicopters or up close, with a narrator describing events in a cold, emotionless tone. While the film was praised for its rare and powerful footage, it has been heavily criticized for being racist and exploitative. Many viewers and critics felt it showed African people as violent and savage, without proper historical context. The American version cut out much of the background information, leading Jacopetti to call it a betrayal. At one point, he was even arrested because authorities believed he filmed a real execution just for the film, but he was later found not guilty. Critics like Roger Ebert called the film racist and offensive, and some accused the directors of staging scenes, though Jacopetti and Prosperi denied this. Children Underground. Children Underground, directed by Edith Belsberg, is a heartbreaking documentary about homeless children living in the subway tunnels of Bucharest, Romania, after the fall of communism. The film follows 5 kids, Christina, Macarena, Mihai, Anna, and Marian, as they try to survive in a world filled with poverty, addiction, and violence. There is no voice-over or commentary. The camera quietly watches as the children beg for money, fight with each other, sniff Orlac, a toxic substance used to get high, and sleep on cold concrete floors. Christina, age 16, is the group's leader. She dresses like a boy for protection and has become tough after years in a violent orphanage. Macarena, 14, is extremely fragile, addicted, confused, and disconnected from her past. Mihai, just 12, is thoughtful and hopes for a better life. The film shows their pain and trauma without trying to shock the viewer. Instead, it gives an honest look at how these children have been forgotten by society. Sadly, what happened to the children after the film is just as tragic. Christina remained addicted and lost her children. Macarena's fate is mostly unknown. Mihai had a brief period of stability, then returned to the streets, and Marian was placed in a shelter and judged able to recover. The Gift. The Gift, directed by Louise Hogarth, is a disturbing documentary that looks into the hidden world of bug chasing, a practice where some gay men deliberately try to get infected with HIV. The film follows 2 men, Doug and Ken Boy, who openly talk about their decision to seek what they call the gift of HIV. Doug speaks emotionally about feeling unwanted in the gay community. He says he had unprotected sex just to feel accepted and loved. Ken Boy, in contrast, describes his experiences calmly, saying he felt free after getting HIV because he no longer had to worry about catching it. He talks about living in an LA sex house where large group sex parties were held and condoms were discouraged. He even says that the danger made it more exciting. The film also interviews older men who became HIV positive during the early AIDS crisis. They never had a choice, and many lost friends and partners to the disease. They talk about the lifelong health problems they got, and many say they are shocked and heartbroken that some young men now seem to glamorize HIV. The Gift also criticizes how public health campaigns have changed. Instead of showing the serious risks, some ads focus on healthy-looking, happy people, making HIV seem less dangerous than it really is. Sound of Torture. Sound of Torture is a 2013 documentary that captures one of the most underreported human rights crises in recent times. Directed by Israeli filmmaker Karen Sheo, it follows Marina Stefanos, an Eritrean journalist and human rights activist, as she uses her Stockholm-based radio program, Voices of Eritrean Refugees, to expose the brutal kidnapping and torture of Eritrean refugees. These refugees, fleeing the dictatorship in Eritrea and crossing through Sudan into the Sinai Desert, are often intercepted by traffickers, many affiliated with Bedouin smugglers. Held in torture camps, the victims are forced to call their families using cell phones provided by their captors, pleading for ransom amounts between $15,000 and $40,000. Estefanos receives and records some of these calls, airing them live to the world. What listeners hear are not just voices, but the actual sounds of people being tortured as they cry, scream, and beg in real time. 3 Identical Strangers. 3 Identical Strangers is a documentary about 3 men, Edward Galland, David Kellman, and Robert Shafran, who who were separated at birth and adopted by different families without ever knowing they had brothers. Directed by Tim Wardle, the story begins in 1980 when Robert starts college and is greeted by students who call him Eddie. Within hours, he learns he has an identical twin. When the story reaches the news, a third man, David, comes forward, and the twins discover they are actually triplets. At first, their reunion is joyful. The three men are shocked by how much they have in common: the same favorite foods, habits, and even childhood struggles. They become close, move in together, appear on talk shows, and even open a restaurant called Triplets. But as the film goes deeper, it reveals a disturbing truth. The triplets were part of a secret psychological experiment led by Dr. Peter Neubauer. Each baby was placed in a family from a different social class, one poor, one middle class, and one wealthy, as part of a study on nature versus nurture. The adoptive parents were never told the real reason for the regular check-ins and tests. The results of the study were never published, and the records are sealed until 2065. The documentary uses real footage, interviews, and dramatic reenactments to uncover this dark chapter in science. The film also touches on mental health. All three brothers faced emotional struggles, and Eddie tragically died by suicide in 1995. Our Father. Directed by Lucy Jordan, it's a shocking true crime documentary that tells the disturbing real story of Dr. Donald Klein, a fertility doctor from Indiana. For years, Klein secretly used his own sperm to inseminate female patients without their knowledge or consent. His actions only came to light when people began using at-home DNA tests and discovered they were part of a growing group of half-siblings. One of them, Jacoba Ballard, became the lead voice in the documentary, helping uncover the truth. So far, at least 94 children have been confirmed as fathered by Klein. The Soviet Story. The Soviet Story is a controversial documentary by Latvian filmmaker Edvin Snor. It argues that the Soviet Union and Nazi Germany were not just similar in their brutality, but also worked together before 1941. The film claims both regimes committed similar crimes, such as mass killings, forced deportations, and political purges, and even helped each other carry them out. It was supported by the Union for Europe of the Nations in the European Parliament. The documentary features interviews with historians, former Soviet dissidents, survivors, and members of the European Parliament. It combines these with rare footage and documents to show the scale of Soviet crimes. Topics include the Holodomor famine in Ukraine, mass executions under Lenin and Stalin, the Gulag labor camps, and the secret police cooperation between the Gestapo in Nazi Germany and the NKVD in the Soviet Union during the Molotov-Ribbentrop Pact. A key message of the film is that while Germany has faced its Nazi past, modern Russia continues to celebrate its Soviet legacy. The film points to rising nationalism and quotes President Vladimir Putin, calling the fall of the Soviet Union the greatest geopolitical catastrophe of the 20th century. It ends with a dedication to the over 20 million victims of Soviet terror. Reactions to the film were divided. Supporters praised it for exposing Stalinist crimes. Critics, however, said the film was politically biased, overly dramatic, and simplified history. Some historians featured in the film, such as Boris Sokolov, later said they disagreed with how their words were used. Others criticized the film for blaming Marx for modern genocide. The reaction in Russia was extreme. Pro-government groups condemned the film, burned effigies of the director, and even made threats against him. Despite this, the Soviet story reached many viewers across Europe. Mondo Cane. Mondo Cane is the film that created the Mondo genre, a type of shock documentary made to disturb and surprise viewers by showing strange or taboo cultural practices from around the world. It moves from pigs being beaten in Papua New Guinea to geese force-fed for foie gras in France. Although shown as a documentary, many scenes were staged or exaggerated to create a stronger emotional reaction. That's because the film focuses more on shock than on explaining what is happening. This can also be said because of the crazy contrasts in the film. One moment shows a peaceful pet cemetery in California. The next shows women in New Guinea being force-fed to gain weight. The soundtrack, especially the theme song More by Riz Ortolani and Nino Oliviero, became famous around the world. Its calm, beautiful sound is in contrast with the often disturbing images on screen, making it even more disturbing. Mondo Cane was a big success and inspired many similar films over the next decades, but it also caused a lot of controversy. Critics said it was racist, fake, and exploitative, especially in the way it showed non-Western people and cultures. If you liked this video, subscribe for similar ones or join my Discord to suggest another.